Hi. Today's dish is macaroni and cheese. It's a favorite. Everyone remembers macaroni and cheese as a kid, unless you were lactose intolerant. Which I guess you didn't do macaroni and cheese, in which case you had a really deprived childhood. It's terrible. I feel for you. Anyway, I like to bring my childhood favorites up to date for my adult palate. So today's dish is macaroni and cheese, but with a truly adult flair. We're going to use some sharp, some really just biting cheeses. We're going to use sea salt. We're going to use wonderful cracked pepper. And what we're going to end up with is this dish that will remind you of your childhood, but make you happy that you're an adult and you can have an adult beverage while you're eating macaroni and cheese. For macaroni and cheese, the first ingredient, and the most important, is a pasta. You don't need to use macaroni. You can use any pasta you want. I kind of like rigatoni because all of those wonderful little nooks and crannies will hold the cheese and make it delicious. You also need milk. I use evaporated milk, 1 whole can. In addition, you may need some water to thin out the mixture. You also need 1/4 cup of butter. Don't use margarine, use butter. It will make it much better. Yes, it's going to be fattening, but it's macaroni and cheese. It's not Slim Fast. A pound of cheddar. Now this is negotiable. If you don't like cheddar, you can use something else. You could even use Velveeta, which will melt better. But in order to balance off the cheddar, we need other cheeses, like 4 ounces of Gruyere, or Gouda, sorry. And then 4 ounces of Gruyere. These will add sharpness to the macaroni and cheese. And then we have salt and pepper to taste. Okay, first you want to bring your water to a boil. You want to make sure that you add salt to your water because that will raise the temperature for boiling. Don't put any oil in or pepper like some people do because it's useless. It floats at the top and does nothing. So go ahead and you add your pasta. Normally you would cook your pasta to be al dente, or if you like it a little bit softer, you would cook it longer. But because it's going to cook again in the cheese and the milk, we really only need it to get to about this consistency, where it's a little limp and a little soft to the touch. So at this point, you need to drain the water off, but you don't need to drain all the water off. So you can reuse some of that hot water in your pan that you've been heating so that everything will melt a little quicker. So now there's still a little water here, and that's what you want, because what we're going to do next is we're going to add our other ingredients. We start with the milk, and then we add our butter, and we add our cheeses. Now, in this case, I've cubed the cheeses. I don't like grating because it creates a mess. If you don't want to grate, you can cube. In addition, if you're working with children to make the macaroni and cheese, you may not want them to handle a knife. So you can keep the pieces of cheese whole if you'd like. It will just take longer to cook. It's perfectly okay. It will cook fine. It will just take longer. You want to make sure you continue to stir because the cheese will start to adhere to the bottom of the pan. And you may want to lower your heat a little bit because we don't really want to have things boil at this point. We want them to simply melt. If you boil your milk, you'll curdle it. You have to have a little patience. Cover the mixture. The nice thing about this dish is if you really wanted to, you could make it a single pan dish. You would measure out probably 2 to 3 cups of water for your rigatoni. You'd boil it. And once the water had been absorbed by the rigatoni, you would add your milk, your butter, and your cheese, all in the same pan, and you'd have a single pan to clean at the end of the dinner. Because you're lazy! You want to remove the lid and stir occasionally, because at this point it is going to get very sticky, very thick. But as you can see, the cheese is melting, and as I said before, the pasta is cooking a little bit more, so it's going to get softer at this point. That's why you don't want to cook your pasta all the way through the first time. Now, about this point, you may want to add a little water if you think it's getting a little too thick. And as I said, if you think it's getting a little too runny, too much liquid, leave the lid off and the water will evaporate. Now you can add salt and pepper to taste. Now, I personally love pepper, so I put a lot of pepper in my macaroni and cheese. And then you want to add some sea salt. Now, if you find that there are some chunks of cheese that haven't quite melted yet, like this, you might want to add a little water just to coax the process along, because what the water will do is it will provide a medium to transfer the heat more evenly throughout the mixture and will help the cheese melt. At this point, you want to lower the heat. Almost all of the cheese has melted. There's still a few pieces here that haven't melted, but they will. You can then turn off the heat and cover the mixture and let it finally finish cooking with the residual heat. Okay, now the tasting. It's cooked for about half an hour, and there's a wonderful smell to it. You may wonder why I choose cheddar and Gruyere and Gouda. Cheddar is the basis of macaroni and cheese. It's what we all grew up with. But as we get older, we like tangier, sharper tastes. And that's what you get from the Gouda. That's what you get from the Gruyere. So, it still has the familiarity when you were a kid and you got the box of macaroni and cheese from Kraft and you added the water and the milk and the butter. But it has a sophistication with the cracked pepper and the sea salt that is specifically designed for adult tongues. And it just, it's like a down-home taste with a metropolitan flair. So it's like being back on the farm, but where everyone has class. I grew up on a farm, so I don't want to hear any lyrics.